Sometime in about 2012, the narcissist had this man named Stanley move in with her. Every time his name came up, she spoke real highly of him. Stanley was a great man, according to her. About a year later, I noticed that every time Stanley's name came up, it was always something negative she had to say about him. One day she told me that she believed Stanley was on drugs and was stealing out her house. Now, I reminded her of the conversations we had been having of how every time his name come up, you always spoke highly of him. Now, every time his name come up, you speaking negative about him. I said, if Stanley is on drugs and stealing, you drove him to that. And she bust out laughing and thought it was funny. Now, me personally, I didn't think anything was funny about somebody living in your house, being on drugs, and stealing from you. Now, from this point on, every time Stanley's name came up, she's running him in the ground, mainly with this story about he's stealing from her. So when I come to Michigan in 2016, she was still telling this story. She was telling it to me, I heard her telling it to other people, and everybody around her was talking about Stanley was some petty thief. The first thing I noticed is that something ain't right about this situation. My son come to me one day, and he's telling me Stanley is supposed to be some petty thief. I said, son, something is off about this story. Something ain't right here. See, because what I'm looking at is, first and foremost, she's been saying this for 3 years, but he's still living in her house. Any normal-minded person, if somebody living in your house and they stealing, first thing you're going to do is get them out your house. But he's still there. And not only is he still there, she sleeps in the bed with him every night. After me being here for 2 weeks, one day I walk in her house and she's there talking with her ex, Lewis. She's saying that some guns have came up missing that she had in her attic. Lewis say, ain't nobody stole them guns but Stanley. Now I'm looking at him, thinking about the conversation me and him had just had. He told me that Stanley was a fool because Stanley goes to work every day and he pays her rent for living in her house. But also, Stanley does plumbing jobs on the side and gives her half of the money of every plumbing job he does, no matter how big or how small. But then I also learned that Stanley not only does that, but he pays the cable bill, he pays the light bill, he pays her cell phone bill, and every time she breaks a cell phone, Stanley buys her a new one. Anybody with a sound mind see all this. It is no way possible this man is going to do all this that he's doing, then turn around and steal out your house. It don't add up. Now, all these people around her saying Stanley is a petty thief is solely based on listening to the narcissist. The truth is sitting right in their face, but they don't care nothing about that. The only thing that matters is what the narcissist is telling them. Now, this is really something here. I was in Ohio, and she first told me this about Stanley. She also told me that my brother Greg, who she had been cutting down for years, made Greg out to be some petty, low-down, no-good person. As long as I can remember, she claimed that Greg was coming to her house, painting, and every single day, she said he came with it, and the backpack was empty, and when he left, the backpack was full, meaning he was stealing from her every single day he worked. Again, when you look at the situation, if somebody's stealing from you every day and you know it, why you didn't confront him and put an end to it? Any sound-minded person would have done that or stopped dealing with him. But you don't. The reason why is because it's just a made-up story, just like with all the rest of these stories. You see, because at the same period of time, mind you, she got Greg and Stanley, she's saying, stealing from her at the same time. The same time, this is when she came up with the story that her daughter stole her debit card when she left home. Again, another lie. But yet and still, there was another man who was doing work at her house around that same period of time. She claimed he came and stole her snowblower or a lawnmower out of the garage. I don't recall which one exactly. And at that period of time, she was telling people this story. She had family members actually wanting to jump on this man based on this lie. Now, all these people stealing from you at the same time? I don't think so. But it didn't end there. She went to my niece's wedding. After the wedding, she claimed my nephew Nevada helped her carry stuff to the car, and she dropped her wallet, and he picked it up and stole $50 out of it. Again, another lie when you investigate the situation. All of these people, she was lying on. When I come to Michigan, 2016, she's still lying on Stanley. Well, I became a part of that lie as well. She started telling people I was stealing from her. Stay tuned. A lie about me.